Good morning, illustrators. Guess what today is? Today is the last chapter in the book. Amazing. We've made it through an entire book and an entire semester. So a while ago we jumped ahead and did lesson 16 because that was about packaging files and pixel perfect drawings, exporting for screens, things like that. We're going to back up and finish with chapter 15, which is using Illustrator with other Adobe applications like Photoshop or InDesign. So we're going to learn about placing linked and embedded graphics, transforming and cropping those graphics, making clipping masks again, using text to mask an image. We're also going to learn about an opacity mask, which instead of masking something out literally, it's kind of like in Photoshop where we can do a gradient and go from 0% opacity to 100% opacity. We're going to take a peek and learn about the links panel and embed and unembed images. So we are going to open from your book files in Chapter 15, we're going to open the L15 start file. This file is going to be an unfinished version of social content for a travel company, so it's going to kind of be an app layout. We're going to add and edit some graphics. So within Chapter 15, we have our start file. All right, we might encounter the missing fonts, and if that does pop up, we're just going to activate the fonts since they are Adobe fonts and available to us. And eventually it will open. All right, my file opened without any font issues, so I didn't have to do that. If you do, obviously just activate the Adobe fonts. And then we're going to save as and give this a name unique to us. We're going to save it as your name, social travel. And when it saves, you can fit all in the window. Okay, we'll try that again then. Social travel, and fit it all in the window, and we're ready to go. So in Illustrator, you can combine Illustrator artwork vectors with images from other graphic applications like Photoshop. So this allows us to combine continuous tone paintings or photographs with vector art. In this exercise, we're going to add photographic images from Photoshop, and then we're going to mask and replace some of these placed images. So the first thing we're going to do is place an image file. We can bring raster artwork from Photoshop or any other application into Illustrator in a variety of ways. So we've done the open, place, paste, drag and drop, library panel. There's tons of ways. The cool thing is that Illustrator supports Photoshop layers, editable text, things like that. So if you place it and it's a PSD, all of your layers are going to be editable. When we place a file, so when we go under the File Place command, which we find up here, we have two options. Let's do this and I'll explain. Let's go to File Place, and in your Lesson 15 you have a subfolder called Images, and we're going to choose the Mountain 2. And before we move on, if you can't see this dialog down here, click on the Options button. We have an option every time we place a graphic to either embed it or link it. So if link is turned on, it's going to link to wherever this is currently being stored. That will help keep our file size small. And if we go into Photoshop and update the image, because it's linked, it will automatically update in Illustrator. So that's the link option. With it turned off, it's not going to link, it's going to embed the photo. It's going to put all of the information into this file, which is going to make it a little bit bigger. So in our case, we do want to link. So make sure that the link is selected and then click place. And we're going to get a cursor loaded with our image. And since it was just one that we selected, it says 1 of 1. We can now take this graphic and we can load it, or we can move our graphic cursor off to the left side on the artboard on the left and click to just place it. So I'm going to move it over here and just click to place it. And there it is. When you do this, it comes in at 100% of its original size. So since it's still selected, I can see over here that it's a linked file, and this is showing me its original size. We can transform these. We can duplicate them, transform them, whatever. However, we have to think about what we're doing here. Because this came from Photoshop and it's 100% of original size, if we make it smaller, it's going to take those pixels and pack them in tighter, and it's going to up the resolution, which is typically fine. But if we make it bigger, it has no more pixels to work with. It's just going to spread them out more and then make the resolution lower. So with our selection tool selected and this image still selected on our artboard, we're going to hold Shift and drag on the lower right bounding box, and we're holding Shift so that it stays proportionate. Oh, that's wrong now. That's the old way. Now it automatically. No, that's not true either. Okay, Shift does make it stay proportionate. Good grief. What we want to do is make it just slightly wider than the artboard. So I'm going to come over to this corner and do the same. All right. It's very strange. You always had to hold Shift to make things proportionate, and then in some of the Adobe apps, they turn that into the default stage, so holding Shift makes it disproportionate. I guess the good news is that you find out real quickly how it's behaving as you start to move your cursor, and you can act accordingly. All right. In the Properties panel, we still see that it is indeed linked, and we're going to click on the words that say linked file. And that's going to pop up another floating window that is all of our links. And right now it's just this one, obviously. It's Mountain 2. And down at the bottom here, there's an arrow and it says show information. So this is highlighted and we want to show information. This is going to tell us, okay, I guess we didn't need to do that. There's only one. The name, it's a JPEG, RGB color space, and the pixels per inch are now 107. The original one might have been 72, but because we made it smaller, it packed those in and upped the resolution. We can also tell that the amount of scaling we did happened to be 67%. And we see all this information here. So if you ever want to get more information on a file, you highlight it in your links. Many times there's several of them, and you click on the more information. Just hit escape to get that panel to go away. And then one other thing that we're going to do is in our transform panel in properties, we can flip this horizontally or vertically just to get a slightly different look. We're going to flip it horizontally. And that did not flip across the center, did it? Okay, that's not what we want, but this should be. I wonder why it's doing that when the anchor is in the center. Huh. Strange. Guess the good news is I can bring it right back. All right, so we flipped it so the clouds are on the other side. Perhaps that didn't happen to you, but if it did, all you have to do is drag it back into position here. Okay, next thing we can do is we can crop an image. So in Illustrator, you guys know that we can hide or mask out part of an image, which we're going to do in a little bit. We're going to actually mask something, but we can also crop it, and this permanently gets rid of the pieces that we don't want to see, whereas masking is non-destructive. So when we crop an image, we get a chance to define the resolution, and sometimes this is helpful for kind of downsizing or making the final size a little bit smaller because you can actually control what it goes to. When you crop an image, Illustrator is going to automatically identify what it considers to be the visually significant parts of the image. So if there were just a cat in the middle, it'd probably be pretty easy to just crop around the cat. There's a lot of similar stuff going on here, so I'm curious to see what Illustrator thinks is important. And if we don't like it, we can change our mind anyway. So with the image still selected over here, we're going to come to our Properties panel, Quick Actions, and we see an option to crop the image. So it says cropping a linked file will embed a copy of the original. The original at the linked location is not affected. That's great. So let's see, okay. And there, it made what it considers to be a default crop based on what it thinks are important. However, we have the opportunity to change this in any way we want. So what we're going to do is just take these borders out to the edge of our artboard on the left and the right, because that's what we want. We're going to take a little off the bottom here and maybe add a little bit to the top or subtract. So whatever you want to do, you're moving around these bounding boxes. Over here in our menu, we're seeing what our pixels per inch are doing. We're at 107. The most that you can ever see here is what the original photo allows for. So you can't go higher than that. If we click this down arrow, we see that we can't go any higher because the original photo doesn't allow those, but we could go smaller. We could go down to 72 or go back to what the original resolution was. Okay, so we're okay with that. We're just going to say apply. And then if needed, we're going to move it around a little bit. So this is a permanent thing. It's not a mask where I can go back and change my mind and find more pieces of this to see. It's gone. So after I've done that, I'm just going to crop it so that it's maybe touching the top of this Explore button like that. All right, now we want to send this image behind some other content that's already on the artboard. So we're just going to go to the Arrange button over here in the Quick Actions, and we're going to send it backwards a few times until we get what we need. And that's good. So we've got some text and we've got like a Polaroid that came up. Click away to deselect it, and we're going to save at this point. And if you're saving by page number, we are on page 416. And we'll be able to move on in our next video.